In Washington, D.C., crime rates have dropped significantly. Homicides are down 32%. Robberies have fallen 39%. Armed carjackings are down 53%. And assaults with a dangerous weapon have dropped 27%. In fact, both burglary rates and assaults with a dangerous weapon are at their lowest levels in 3 decades. Despite this sharp decline in crime, President Trump, citing his tough on crime stance, deployed hundreds of National Guard troops into Washington, D.C. today. He placed the city's police force under direct federal control, effectively removing local leaders from making their own law enforcement decisions. According to the Washington Post, this extraordinary flex of federal power could leave residents facing unpredictable encounters with military personnel deployed within the city. So, is this really about crime? If so, perhaps the president could instead focus on locating the Axan machete-wielding triple murderer he recently released in Orlando. Or maybe stop by that Bureau of Prisons crown jewel facility more reminiscent of a community college to ask Ghislaine Maxwell herself, is this truly a matter of being tough on crime? Let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it's not just about crime in general, maybe it's about D.C. specifically. After all, this is the seat of the U.S. federal government. Perhaps even a historic low in violent crime is considered too much when it comes to protecting the nation's capital. Maybe the president is simply laser-focused on safeguarding the federal government's home. January 6th. Well, that's another matter. Apparently, his concern only applies now. Anyway, today is Monday. And last Friday, this happened. A sustained and violent attack was carried out against the headquarters of the federal government's Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC. Those small marks you see, those tiny holes are bullet holes in the CDC building. According to reports, the gunman attempted to enter the CDC headquarters in Atlanta, but was stopped by security guards. He then drove to a nearby pharmacy, positioned himself there, and opened fire on the CDC. The Associated Press reports that he unleashed more than 180 rounds into the building. Authorities later found he was armed with 5 firearms, 4 of them long guns. His gunfire shattered at least 150 windows, even piercing blast-resistant glass, and sent shards flying into multiple offices across several buildings. 1 police officer was killed in the attack. The gunman also died, though it remains unclear whether he took his own life or was shot by law enforcement. It is nothing short of a miracle that no CDC personnel, then the fallen officer, were killed. Following the incident, Robert F. Kennedy, Donald Trump's health secretary and head of the agency overseeing the CDC, posted a statement online the day after the CDC shooting. When a gunman fired more than 180 rounds into the agency's headquarters, the man in charge of the CDC was busy posting phishing photos. That was his immediate public reaction. Only later, after sharing his phishing updates, did he get around to offering condolences for the attack, or, as it seemed, for the shooting or whatever. This was a major assault on a federal government facility. 180 bullets fired into the CDC. Yet, so far, President Donald Trump has offered no response at all, certainly not an armed one in Atlanta, where the CDC is based. Instead, today, he deployed the National Guard to Washington, D.C. because, apparently, he's tough on crime. So maybe it's not really about crime, okay? Maybe it's not about defending the federal government from threats, okay? Maybe it's not about any of the justifications he gives. Maybe it's about what's right in front of us that he seems to relish using. Us, military force against American civilians on American soil. And will seize any opportunity to do it wherever he can. Watch what they do, not what they say, because if you look at his overall record on crime, does it really make sense that sending troops to take over Washington, D.C. was about crime? That's what he claimed. But based on his actions, what do you think? While talking about being tough on crime, President Trump also sent the National Guard and active-duty U.S. Marines to Los Angeles, supposedly to protect the city from protests against him. The deployment was so questionable and disconnected from its stated purpose that, according to the Los Angeles Times, calls to the GI rights hotline surged. Service members told the hotline they didn't want to be sent to aim guns at American citizens, saying they refused to be armed occupiers in their own country. The New York Times reported similar pushback, noting that at least one company commander and one battalion commander who objected to the mission were reassigned to unrelated duties. Some troops were so disgruntled that incidents were reported of soldiers defecating in Humvees and in showers at the Southern California base, prompting officials to impose stricter bathroom controls. Despite that success in Los Angeles, Trump is now using military bases nationwide to establish massive immigrant detention camps. Plans are underway for such facilities at Fort Bliss in Texas, Camp Atterbury in Indiana, and Joint Base McGuire-Dix Lakehurst in New Jersey. He has also declared large portions of Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona as military zones legally, expanding the boundaries of bases into vast territories stretching hundreds of miles. Within these zones, active duty troops have been given the authority to stop, search, and arrest Americans on U.S. soil. Watch what they do, not what they say. Trump appears intent on deploying the U.S. military inward as a show of force, too. The American people demonstrating what he and the government can do to them. Protests are already erupting. In D.C., people took to the streets today, just as they did in Los Angeles when troops were deployed there. Over the weekend, Los Angeles saw demonstrations against ongoing immigration raids and arrests undeterred by the presence of the National Guard and Marines. In Columbus, Ohio, protesters formed a continuous 8-mile line along High Street, calling it Hands Along High Street, in opposition to Trump's actions. And in Florida, a 104-year-old woman, soon to turn 105, has been protesting every Thursday with friends and neighbors. Her sign reads, "Girls just want to have fun." Ding for scientific research. One day out of every 7 of her life, she is standing against the Trump administration. What's your excuse, spring chicken? When Trump sent troops to Los Angeles this summer on the flimsy pretext of an impending war, Mayor Karen Bass and other city officials didn't just protest and try to block it, they warned the nation. Their message was clear. He's starting with us, but you're next. They were right. We've now reached the stage in this authoritarian push where the leader is actively trying to turn the nation's military against its own citizens. The urgent questions now are, what will the troops do and what will we do?